Okay, Satnam. This is Nam Joti Tree of Life Kundalini. I'm here again today interviewing Dr. Siri Atma, who, if you missed our last interview, we had a great chat about a lot of things. And today, I'm really excited to talk to you more.
Okay. Lead off.
So I've heard you say that the whole point of yoga is to serve and contribute. Can you tell us more about that?
Okay, so there's two parts to that. I think the first part is that yoga gives you an awareness. And what is awareness? Awareness is that part of your thoughts or your consciousness that you focus on. So a person can be aware of their impulses, and that's it. Their desires, that's it. Their emotions, that's it. So what Kundalini Yoga is trying to do is to make you aware of the voice of your soul, so you can listen to that highest conscience and consciousness within yourself and follow it. Now, that said, what most people think is that there's going to be this running discourse all the time telling you to do this, telling you to do that, and that's not true. When your highest self speaks to you and suggests that you do a thing, it can be as simple as a 15-minute action, or it can be a lifelong course. And it can have many twists and turns. A lot of the time in your life, you won't have any direction necessarily. And you, at that time, go with the feeling of what is right, of what would be the best. And again, doing Kundalini Yoga makes you aware so that you have a sense and sensitivity. You have three bodies that are involved in this. You have your aura, which gives you a sensitivity to what's going on in your environment in close time and space, and your arc line, which gives you a sensitivity and awareness of distant time and space. And then you have your subtle body, which is basically the voice of refinement, and it listens to the input of the soul, the aura, and the arc line, and it refines it and helps you understand more about what is meant. Now, the ego is the big obstructing force, and the thing that gives people difficulty in knowing how to serve or what to serve is the voice of the ego. And the voice of the ego is easily discerned from the voice of the soul, because the voice of the soul is suggestive. This is good, this is not so good, avoid it. And the ego always takes you hostage. So your thoughts that are hostage taking are just thoughts that you pretty much can avoid. There are thoughts that say, if you don't do this, there'll be no tomorrow. If you do this, you'll win the cake.
Right.
And
I've had those thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. And so what you're doing is you're becoming aware of the unseen, the unknown. You're gaining an intuition. You're developing the frontal lobes of the brain so that you have a good intuition, a sense and awareness of what other people need, of what your environment needs. And you start nurturing yourself and your environment. And that's, I guess, the major way I would rewrite what's been written. You talk about loving. Well, what is love? It's such an ambiguous thing. In some circles, love is just lust. But nurturing is much clearer. You nurture a plant, you nurture a friend, you nurture a child, you nurture your partner, you nurture your parents nurture you. nurturing is what makes you grow strong and complete. So it makes you whole and independent. And I don't mean independent in the sense that one shouldn't have a social responsibility, but I mean independent in that you don't require another source besides you, your soul, and the infinite to move along your path in life. And you can help another person find their path. You can help another person develop their full nature by nurturing them. And the question is easy. When you're doing yoga and when you're doing meditation, what you're doing is you're developing a sensitivity so that you can ask a question and hear the answer. And so you just simply ask the question, what do I need to do in this situation to make this situation better? And by better, you mean more complete, more whole, more full of life, stronger, all these things. You could just say more chi, more juice, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's what you're trying to do, and to be aware of that. And when you hear the answer, you have to have the capacity to act on that answer, because there's all sorts of reasons not to. The ego can get into a situation, the person doesn't deserve it. That's a judgment. I don't want to do that. You just feel off. Nobody did it for me. I'm not going to do it for them. That sort of thing. There's all sorts of emotions that can get between you and service. So you're doing yoga to serve yourself to a degree. The goal of the yoga is to get the awareness. But once you have the awareness, what are you now going to do with your life? And that becomes the question.
What are you going to do with your life?
so then what do you do with your life? And the biggest problem that I see that people have in deciding what they want to do with their life is, first of all, they've been asked that question when they were really young, as if they would know.
Yeah. I think we're just curious what the little ones will say.
Well, yeah, maybe, but I took it seriously. And I thought to myself, as I was asked these questions, why are you asking a 6-year-old what he wants to be? I'm 6. There's a lot I have to learn before I get to that point in my life.
Very self-aware 6-year-old.
Can't help it. It was me.
Yeah.
So when you seek to decide what you are, I think that your guide is what inside you is authentic. And the places that you will know are truly authentic in you are places that you can't change no matter what, even if it means a loss of survival benefit.
What do you mean by that? Can you expand on that? I think I know what you're saying.
Sure. Well, I mean, you obviously have people that are addicted to drugs, and so there's something that they have difficulty changing despite the fact it's killing them. I'm not talking about anything like that.
Okay.
I'm talking about a situation where you find something unique in yourself that if you could, you'd change, because it's just so socially expensive and so financially expensive. For instance, for me, being a Sikh wasn't something that has been a financial benefit or educational benefit. It didn't help me get into medical school for certain. People didn't say, oh my goodness, here comes a Sikh. We want him in our medical class for diversity. That wasn't what was expressed. it's more like, well, there's an unknown. We've never seen anybody like that. And we only have 75 slots. And are we going to give up one of those 75 slots to an unknown? Such a big unknown because we know nothing about it.
Right.
And because they're not coming from a place where they are using intuition and they are using sensitivity, it's difficult for them to read what's going on. And the way I would describe that is this. People that have sensitivity are people like designers that can see colors that other people can't see. They're like musicians who have perfect pitch and hear notes to a degree of perception that other people don't have. And so you can have somebody who says, I don't hear that, or I don't see that. Mm-hmm. And it's a perfect truth. Mm-hmm. So Kundalini Yoga is to make you aware of this world that is going on inside you, where you have a soul voice that's communicating to you, where you have a subtle body refinement voice, which is communicating to you, where you have your aura and your arc line communicating to you. And you can hear these voices, and it gives you the courage to act. Because the first thing that happens in Kundalini Yoga is you become aware of the voice, but you don't have the courage to act. That's where you get scared. Yeah. And that's where you're afraid that something more could really be what you should do. And that's where, the question, what do you do to serve? It doesn't matter, because fate and destiny aren't tracks that are diverging and going in opposite directions. They're parallel tracks. They're very, very close together. Okay. How to describe it? When you're on the fate track, it's like running down the drag strip racetrack, but you red lighted. You already lost. So you're doing virtually the exact same thing, but there are no points for it. Okay? There's no chance to win. When you're on the destiny path, you're getting points for it. Your karma is cleared. You're getting this flow with the infinite. The infinite is filling you. You're having a joy and an experience of joy and bliss, which makes you happy and gives you a life worth living. Mm-hmm. And so fate and destiny are often separated by something as simple as intention.
Okay. Can you, for people that don't understand the difference between fate and destiny, can you explain that?
Sure. Your destiny is what you know you're supposed to do, whether you want to or not. Okay? Now, you either face up to it and do it, or you procrastinate, or you avoid it. And you can do some combination of all three. And in the end, you're not seeking perfection, but you can't be less than 50%. Okay?
51% or better.
51% or better, and you're good.
I like that.
All right? If you get 51% of your life right, you're fine. You really are.
Okay. All right. I think that's a great relief to a lot of us recovering perfectionists.
Yeah, the perfection thing is, oh my goodness, you're excommunicated from your church, your friends, you're communicated, your parents won't, love you, and there's all this withholding.
You mean in the mind of the perfectionist?
That's correct.
I know a few people like that. I don't think it ever got that big for me. But I know where you're going. Okay, so you talk about independence. Can you talk about codependence?
Codependence is very simple. Codependence is when you serve another person, but you make them dependent on you, or you make them weaker. Your service has to make the individual whole, complete, independent, strong, one with their inner being. That last one can be a great deal of sophistication that you may not have, and that doesn't matter, but you get the general drift.
Yeah.
So codependency occurs when you can't allow the other person to have a choice in the matter, and you can't let God have sway. The best way I can say it is this. I was talking with Yogi Bhajan, and he said, so now we know the probability. Now let's see what God wants. And that was a wonderful statement that I've never thought. Not only, yeah, let's sit back and see what God wants, but he really made me aware that even when you know the outcome ahead of time, okay, so say you've done the yoga and the meditation, and you know the future before it happens. Suspend your knowledge of it. Don't put your projection behind it. Mm-hmm. And just let it be. And give that person the opportunity to change that fate and reach their destiny. So do you see the difference there?
Yeah, it feels like the second option is kind of what God does.
Exactly. All you're doing for others is what God does with you.
Right. That's beautiful. I love that. I just read that in your book, and I've been saying that all week. Well, now we know the probability. Let's see what God has to say.
And you're really opening in any case, in every situation, a chance for a miracle to occur. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to happen, and that's where I fight with people that want to be psychic healers, because they want to basically be the source of a miracle every time somebody comes to their room, and pays them their fee. Right. And that's not what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that most people, I'm going to segue and just tell a story. Okay. Great. When you come to a spiritual master, what do you want them to do for you? Do you want them to help you realize your highest self and become self-aware? Or do you want to ask them whether or not the business that you're about to embark on will be financially successful?
Let me consider these two options.
And I will tell you, the majority of students that I've seen in my life ask the latter.
Yes.
Because that's what their whole mind is wrapped up in. Am I going to be safe? Am I going to be successful? And the teacher looks at them as he gives them the answer with this look of, I'm worried that you won't free yourself with this life. What is the value of the human life? The value of the human life is that we have a chance to free ourselves from our fear that we aren't created and that we have to be the source of our own existence.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a huge amount of pressure. Yeah. And it leads to lower consciousness. But when you look at what lower consciousness is action out of fear. Mm-hmm. Of varying degrees. And the lower the consciousness, the more the fear.
Yeah. So what can people do when they get stuck when they're on the spiritual path, but they find that they're getting sucked into the fear?
Right. So let me take that back just another second. Let's talk about things that cause people to get stuck and how you deal with that.
Okay.
So one issue that we talked about was pain and suffering. And pain and suffering can certainly cause you to get stuck. So what do you do if you have an overwhelming experience in your life, which is so traumatic that the odds are you're never going to recover from it in your life?
Now, what do you do?
What do you do? What do you do? I mean, because
Well,
we
survive
all,
that stuff, but then they're kind of, yeah, they're not the same.
how do you deal with it? So the first thing that you can do is you can get help. You can ask a counselor or a minister to help you. You can do your own spiritual work with your meditations and all those things. But still, you may find that you're not getting any solace. In those situations, what has worked for me is to acknowledge how much pain I'm in, acknowledge that I'll probably be in pain my whole life, and acknowledge that I got to get on with it anyway, and acknowledge that when things get particularly bad, I'm just going to pause and I'm going to sit there for a moment and feel that pain run through me and acknowledge how much I hurt. And then I'm going to get up and move on. And it's just a setting of, okay, that's enough. You got to just move on. And then when you move on, you make sure that you spend your life focusing on where you want to go and not constantly looking back at what you're trying to avoid. If you try to avoid further pain, you're going to end up in further pain. You just have to assume it was a one-off. Okay? I mean, this is what I call warrior's folly. A warrior goes into battle knowing he's going to die, but that's not going to help him survive. So he's got to believe he's going to live. And, even though everything in your life says that you're going to suffer that pain one more time, you got to just say, hey, it was just a one time, no biggie. I'm just going to move on. I doubt it's going to happen again. And I'm going to keep going down the road that I think that I should be on. And the thing is that when you take the road that you think that you should be on, you will meet your guides, you will meet your friends, and God will cover the gap. And the greatest thing that having a spiritual teacher was for me was watching Yogi Bhajan walk right off a cliff because he knew he'd be carried. He knew that the way was on the other side, and therefore he had to get there. And he would just walk. And all of a sudden the bridge would appear and he would go across. But he forced the bridge to appear by taking the first step off. That's faith.
That's fate?
Faith.
Oh my
Faith.
faith. Yeah.
That's faith.
Yes.
That's faith. And so when you watch somebody do this often enough, you go, oh gosh, if it works for them, it'll work for me. And then you try it too, and then it works for you. And it becomes a part of your life.
Yeah, it has worked for me. I've walked off a lot of cliffs.
I see that.
Do?
Oh yeah, I mean, you're all about that. I think that's one of your best qualities. It's something that you've done very successfully.
Oh, thank you. I still have fear, but I do it afraid.
It doesn't mean you're not afraid when it happens.
Yeah.
I think stepping off those cliffs is the ultimate extreme sport.
It totally is.
And personally, I've exchanged all my extreme sports for that one.
Interesting. Yeah, when there was a time, what was it? I remember right after a few years after I had a baby, I had, someone was over and they said, and I said, I'm really competitive. We were going to play a board game. And they said, I said, I used to be really competitive. And they said, I don't see that in you. And I said, yeah, but then I had a baby and I did all this yoga and I'm just not really competitive anymore. But I still have this, this extreme sports side of me. It really is trusting God and seeing what God.
And being in the flow, the same flow that you used to get in to succeed in an extreme sport, you've got to be in to take that step.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't walk across the gap out of tune. You tune in before you start.
Right. Yes. We're at the holiday season, so this time of year there do tend to be a lot of people. It's in the northern hemisphere it's darker, the days are shorter, and there's just, it seems like there's more suffering at this time. So what can, if there's like a small thing that people can do to alleviate their own suffering or someone else's, what would you recommend?
So let's talk about how to alleviate your own suffering. Yogi Bhajan used to say that even when you're hopeless, there's just less hope, but there's always hope. And I think that when you do anything that takes you towards your goal, it gives you hope and it takes you out of pain, it takes you out of depression, it takes you out of suffering. And it doesn't take much to take you towards your goal, and your goals don't have to be huge goals. People that set goals that are too big are like a person trying to ride their bicycle up a hill in too high a gear. You just got to gear down to a sprocket where things work, and then take your time. If you have to, you walk. But you don't set. So, okay, let me go back. I think that when you fail, you create a pain and a suffering within your own self. And some people get to the point where they're afraid to even try because they don't want to experience failure again. When you get in this situation, you first want to assess and be honest with yourself what you want. I think that can be hard, and maybe sitting down with a friend or a minister or a counselor can be really good, and just setting what is truly important to you. Then once you've admitted what's important to yourself, because some people won't admit what's important to them because they're afraid to lose it, they're afraid to try and fail, they're afraid they won't be accepted. There's all sorts of reasons that people are unwilling to accept what their heart's desire is. And their heart's desire and their soul's desire is going to be very, very close. It may not be exact, but if you go towards it, it'll at least bring you close enough that you'll get a handle on what your soul's desire is at some point, and you can make the exchange. So then you just need to do one little thing that takes you towards that goal. It doesn't have to be huge, and it definitely does not want to be such a big attempt that you're likely to fail. You always have to set goals for yourself in steps that you know you can succeed. And if you feel that you can't succeed on the whole thing, well, just break it down into more steps and then keep going on. Time is a lever. And so just take more time at it.
Lever, a liver, like a.
Yeah. Yes. It's if you give yourself more time to do that difficult thing, you should be able to lift. You should be able to change it.
So like a small goal, like sometimes as small as putting on your shoes, right?
Exactly.
And, going to the mailbox or going to the car or like writing that email.
When you decide that you want to play the piano, the first thing that you play better be chopsticks, because if you think that you're going to be playing Beethoven, you're going to be disappointed in yourself.
Yeah, that's the gap that our
That,
class talks about.
that's the gap.
You like, for an artist, you want to be an artist because you have good taste in artists and you want to be like them. But between what you are now and there's a gap, and it just takes practice and taking steps. Good, I like that.
And that's what you're doing to become yourself. And when you are yourself, you will be happy. That is guaranteed. Even if you're under the worst persecution that a person could ever imagine, if you're true to yourself, you will be satisfied.
Right.
Cause happiness. You can have all the money in the world, but if you still don't like yourself, where's the happiness?
Well, I think that's a good place to stop for today. It's so nice to do this. And I think we gave people a lot to think about and a lot of hope. So thank you.
Welcome.
It's
slow and steady wins the race.
Thank you.
Okay.
Till next time. We'll chat again.
Salam.
Sana.